The story begins with a young, innocent girl dressed in worn, poor clothing. She looks exhausted, burdened by endless house chores. As she walks through the yard carrying a basket, her mind is overwhelmed with thoughts of her tasks. Ironing clothes, organizing the library, and more. On top of everything, she is starving. She hasn't eaten since yesterday. Her life is consumed by the violent practices of her masters, leaving her uncertain if she'll survive to adulthood. Despite her hardships, she has no escape. She is a slave. Lost in her thoughts, she is startled when someone calls out to her, then shouts her name. Snapping back to reality, she sees Miriam, another girl in the household who clearly despises her. Miriam mockingly calls her Wednesday, the name everyone uses for her, tied to the day she was abandoned here. Wednesday tries to explain that she wasn't ignoring Miriam, but before she can, Miriam slaps her and coldly accuses her of being noisy and making excuses. Knowing the consequences of speaking up, Wednesday stays silent, aware that defending herself would only bring more punishment. Miriam, with her superior position, reminds Wednesday of her duties for the day, serving the master, and warns her of the harsh penalties if she fails. Mocking her further, Miriam comments on Wednesday's sad, red eyes, which she claims she hates seeing, and orders her to cover them. As Miriam went away, leaving Wednesday empty-headed and without an answer, Wednesday walked down the hallway, lost in thought. She couldn't help but think about how Miriam had a special place in the household. Miriam laughed freely, wore beautiful clothes, and commanded authority. But it wasn't always like this. Wednesday remembered when Miriam was just another silent, oppressed girl in the hallway, no different from her. While heading to the master's library, she encounters Sunday, her only friend in this oppressive household. Upon seeing her, Sunday greets her warmly. He was about to talk about work, but when he noticed the red mark on her cheek, his voice turned angrily. Wednesday didn't want to answer him because she feared he would get mad and seek revenge. If he did, he would likely end up imprisoned and starved again. Wednesday imagined all the terrible things that might happen, so she quickly changed the subject and asked him why he was there, even though it wasn't his turn. Sunday hesitates and said he was bored. Wednesday is touched by his kindness, but Wednesday worried about him getting caught. The master was in a bad mood today, and Sunday might get into serious trouble. In this house, children are named after days of the week, tied to their assigned workdays, and breaking the rules could result in severe punishment. She wanted to warn him to be careful, but Sunday didn't seem afraid. Instead, he reminded her of all the times she had helped him. Wednesday smiled kindly at him. She liked treating Sunday as her younger brother, even though no one in the house really knew their true ages. She often dreamed about a different life, with cars, planes, children going to school. Sunday promised her that one day, he would grow taller and become the big brother, while she would be the little sister. His playful words made Wednesday smile, and when she teased him about his red face, he quickly said it was just the hot weather. She laughed quietly to herself, thanked him for being kind, and told him to stay away from the master to avoid trouble. After saying goodbye, Wednesday continued to the master's library, hoping she wouldn't face more problems today. Wednesday opened the library door slowly, expecting it to be empty like it usually was. As she enters the master's library, she is surprised to find him there. She froze for a moment, feeling a little afraid, but she decided to clean the library as quietly as possible so he wouldn't notice her. As she began her work, the master suddenly slammed his hand on the desk. The loud noise made her jump. He looked furious, shouting about how his plans had failed. He complained that border controls had become stricter, making it impossible for him to sell slaves as he usually did. Wednesday tried to stay calm, focusing on her cleaning to avoid drawing attention. But the master noticed her. His anger turned toward her, and he shouted at her. Before she could react, he slapped her hard across the face. For a little girl like her, it was painful, but she didn't make a sound. She knew from experience that if she cried or showed any reaction, he would get even angrier and punish her more. The master insulted her, calling her terrible names like he always did. When she didn't answer, he accused her of being ungrateful, saying no one else would feed her or take care of her like he did. Wednesday stayed quiet, holding back her tears and trying to stay out of trouble. But this time, something inside her felt different. She had endured his shouting and cruel words so many times before, but now she couldn't hold it in any longer. She felt her anger and frustration build up, and for the first time she shouted back at him. "How much longer do I have to hold it in? No matter what I do, you're always angry." Her outburst infuriates the master further. Seeing her defiance as unacceptable, he decides to make an example of her. He grabs a whip, threatening to punish her to death. As he raises the whip high, Wednesday feels true fear, certain that her life is about to end. But before the whip strikes, the library door bursts open with a loud crash. The master stops, startled. A group of royal knights storms in, led by a burly knight with platinum hair. Pointing his sword at the master, he declares, "I finally found you.